Madam Speaker, it is the good book in the book of Daniel that tells me that he changes the times and the seasons. He lifts up kings and he removes kings. He gives wisdom to those who are wise and knowledge to those who are discerning. Madam Speaker, this good book that I read is the one that tells me that leaders are to be respected. And we are not calling upon someone to respect Kiarie or to respect President Ruto. You might have your differences with President Ruto, but you cannot sacrilege the institution of presidency. The institute of parliament is sacrilegious, Madam Speaker, to have an affront like the one we are seeing from the leaders of the clergy. But most importantly, Madam Speaker, those who claim to be calling out evil, to be calling out injustice, to be calling out immorality, need to check themselves first, Madam Speaker. Because it is the good book again, in the book of Matthew, that tells me, why do you look at the log in your neighbor's eye? Why do you look at the speck in your neighbor's eye while you have a log in your own? What is happening in these institutions called religious institutions? There is nothing that they are calling out other people on that they are not doing, Madam Speaker. There is immorality in our churches. There is theft and thievery in our churches. There is a lot of evil things that are happening there. So, Madam Speaker, the point here is, let the politics be done by politicians and let the clergies be true to the call that they are called to. And it is very clear in the Bible, the place of the religious leader and the place of the political leader. Because we have not traded places. We are not in the altars of churches preaching. In the same way, a preacher cannot be on the platform of politics, politicking. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker.
Yeah, the Honorable Member for... Honorable Millie Odhiambo, Member for Suba, no? Those who want to contribute, put the intervention button.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I can hear members are already shouting bad girl. On this one, let me be a good girl. Madam Speaker, even though I listen and hear what my other members are saying, but I actually want to say that there are a few areas where I disagree. When the voice of the church is silent, the nation suffers. And Madam Speaker, I want to say that I agree with the church that they must speak and must call out evil. And it is indeed unfortunate that we find ourselves in a situation where members of parliament can actually be talking back and forth with the church. Did the members of parliament bring this? No. The church brought it upon themselves. And Madam Speaker, they brought it upon themselves that if you look at the last election, the church was very partisan. The church classified my party leader a demon and a devil. And they are not God, because only God knows the heart of man. You told us as the church that President Ruto was ordained by God. When did God unordain him? Or are you listening to yourselves and not to God? This is a very serious issue. The church has a place, a very special place in society. And when you cede that position to politicians, the society loses it. That is why we have femicides, things that the church should address. That is why we have rogue youth talking toxic to politicians. That is why you have people disrespecting others, because the church has decided to take politics ahead of their God-ordained duty. I want to encourage the church leaders to look at Matthew chapter 15. When the Pharisees and the teachers of the law went to confront Jesus and what they told Jesus. Because my time is up, I just want to say that if they look at what is in the book of Matthew, Jesus told them, Matthew chapter 15, they can read all of it, but Jesus told them, these people honor me with their lips, but their hearts are far from me. The church needs to do serious soul searching and bring the country back to its moral and rightful place. Thank you, Honorable Jeanette, for bringing this.
The Honorable Member for Seme, Honorable James Nyikal.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. We are talking about a very, very important issue in the country. And I thank Honorable Jeanette for bringing this. It is true, when I walk around, I don't feel proud as a member of parliament because of the things I hear. The church is calling us out. They may not themselves be right, but I think we want to take one thing. We are elected to represent the people. We carry the burden of the people. Indeed, if a society goes wrong, that same society will appoint at the people it has elected, not realizing that the people may be representing the society as it is. So when we are being called out, there may be something. And as much as we would like to call on the church, I'll end up by saying one thing and suggesting to our leadership two things. We have a public relations department that actually looks at the issues and points out what is it that is going on. I think we should engage that. Number two, I think the leadership in this house should actually commission a very serious study and go to the public and find out why is the public feeling as it does about us. When those facts are available, we as representative people, as leaders, must face them squarely and address them. I don't think we are angels. And instead of bashing the church publicly, loudly like this, we should also look at ourselves. I think both sides of the society, there's a problem. We should look at ourselves, the church should look at themselves and find out. And as leaders, it is our duty to lead in this process and find out why the church is talking as it is talking about us and face those issues that we'll find out. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The Honorable Sabina Chege.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And I want to thank Honorable Jeanette for bringing that motion. And I concur with many things that I don't want to repeat what my colleagues have said. But Madam Speaker, I want to say something here that maybe no one has said. That this House also deserves to respect itself. Madam Speaker, we have had our own colleagues going out there, accusing us on all sorts of manner of things. And Madam Speaker, I have not seen anything happening to those members. I want to call upon the Speaker of this House, and I would have loved to speak when he was here, that it is time to crack the whip. Madam Speaker, we have had members of this House going to the same churches, and I respect the church so much, and we are all members of different churches, so we do not disrespect the religious leaders. But they have gone on the same altar. They have lied. They have said members of this House have been given money. They have written, and my friend Koibori was here, and he ran away when I told him I actually want to name him here. And Madam Speaker, we have powers and privilege committee. We have not seen them cracking the whip. Madam Speaker, last Sunday, which is very unfortunate, there were people who also had gone to our village. And on the same platform, in a church forum, I heard they are not members of this House, they are our colleagues in the Senate, claiming that they were given a certain amount of money, 20 million Kenya shillings, to impeach the Deputy President. Madam Speaker, why are we allowing the public to disrespect us? We are the same people who are going out there, telling lies about this House, then we complain when we are disrespected. I would urge, Madam Speaker, the members of this House, because there is a trend that they go, somebody just want to become popular, or they just want to be clapped for, so they will use this House to go and talk about things that have not happened here, and nothing happens to them. Madam Speaker, I want to say once again, it is time for the Speaker of this House to crack the whip. Let people who are lying and giving false accusation about this House be brought to book. If one of them a step is taken, Madam Speaker, I'm very sure the perception will change. Let us not go and dress ourselves out there, then we come here and cry about what the other people think about us. There's something called perception. Madam Speaker, we must clear how the outsiders, the eye of outsiders, perceive Parliament. I submit, Madam Speaker.
The Honorable Alice Nganga, member for Thika Town.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. We all know when the church and the state work together, there is development. But when we start now calling each other's name, then things don't work the way they are supposed to work. I can tell you, Madam Speaker, we were in Naivasha last week, and I was quoted by the papers that there are some words that I stated when we were in Naivasha, and in all the media houses, the entire morning, it was about Alice Nganga said this, Alice Nganga talked about allowances. And I know that one is not true, but according to the people who are listening to what the papers are saying or what the media is saying, they believe whatever that was said is correct. As for what is going on to the churches, Honorable Speaker, I feel very bad, and especially when we are told not to go and give in the church. And myself, I am a believer. I believe in God. I believe in Jesus Christ. But when I am told I am not supposed to go to church and give, and Romans 6:38 says, you give and it will be given to you, good measure, pressed down, shaken together, and running over will be put into your bosom. For with the same measure that you give, you use, it will be measured back to you. So me as a human being, as a church goer, as a believer in Jesus Christ, if I am told not to go and give in church, that one now means that whatever I believe in, I'm being curtailed, and that one is not fair. Let the person who wants to give to go and give. It is not all the truth all the time that the money that we give, and it is not the truth because we have been giving ever since we were young children until today. We have been giving. Now you are being told when we are mature enough that we cannot give. That is not right. And I want to say this. It is wrong when you tell the members of Parliament, we have families, we have homes, we have values, we have morals. So when we are being told that we cannot give in church, we cannot participate in church because maybe something has happened at the floor of the house. When we come here, we are doing what we are elected to do, to pass laws. Whether they favor you or you are happy with them or not, that is not in your position to tell me that I should not go to church. It is wrong to tell members of Parliament they should not visit church. It is very wrong, and let our God only be the judge, not a human being. You know, the Bible says that accursed is a person who put their trust in a man. We should all put our trust in God and God alone. Even the prophecies that are going across, they are being prophesied for members of Parliament. I should tell them, please don't believe in those prophecies. Just trust in your God. Just trust with your prayers. Keep on praying. Our God will be the judge at the end of the day. Thank you very much.
I think lastly, let me give the Honorable Member for Bamachoge Chache.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Let me also give a voice on this important debate. Personally, I'm a son of a pastor. It's so sad that churches are mixing ideas like politicians. If you cannot differentiate between a church and a politician, then this country will be doomed. Let me give you an example. It's so sad and unfortunate that you find the government may be having mistakes, which is very normal. Government is composed by human beings. In the church, we believe that clergy people are preaching what God has sent them to do. And the same Bible categorically says, you must forgive your neighbor 70 times 7 in a day. That's several times in one day. Now I'm wondering, if churches are pointing fingers on politicians, pointing fingers on the president, pointing fingers to everybody, then whom are we supposed to run to? Remember, the church was meant as a solace for people having problems. It's a region whereby people should be going there for forgiveness. Churches, for example, fathers, they pray for other believers, presenting their cases to God. We cannot mix darkness and light. You cannot mix water and paraffin. They will never be mixed. That means we should differentiate categorically that we should stand as Christians and the sons of God to portray the image of God. This is the time we should encourage that it's high time. If there is a problem facing the country, they are not supposed to point fingers to the government. They should go to the mountain and pray God to make things happen in the right way. Because if now the crutch is coming back to the nation crying and the government is crying, then what's the way forward? Let's do the right thing and know that God is not human being. You cannot charge any human. You have no right to charge another human being. All of us, we breathe one air, we breathe oxygen, given by free, given by God. This God we worship. Politicians, we do make mistakes. Pray that God will assist us. And I want, because of time, to say that
Member for Migori.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for this. Their country is Kenya. And for their memory, because they should be having like this, we might end up there, or even worse than that. So I want to tell our media houses, we love you, the media, particular media house, because they've seen Fatuma being aired. But if you pack me matope all the time, I want to tell the media house. In fact, ironically, I remember when I was running for this seat, I had 2 media personalities who left their job to come and compete to be women reps. I know many who have come into this house as a result of being in a media house. So if this house is that bad, then why do you focus on us? Let us build our country, let us criticize positively, and again I insist, do not criticize if you don't have an alternative. Give us an alternative in your criticism. I will not talk much about the churches, but I want to remind them that only Allah can judge. Both me and you, it's only Allah who knows who will be in paradise and will be in the hellfire. So I'm requesting the church, I'm requesting our mosque, but I must excuse our mosque because honestly, the Muslim fraternity is not so much in politics as the other fraternity. So I'm requesting our churches, kindly pray for us. If you see Fatuma doing wrong, the best you should do for me is pray for me. But you should also call me in private and say, Fatuma, yesterday what you did was not right. That is how we were brought up. That is what we know about the churches. And that is what Jesus used to do. I never saw Jesus anywhere cast a sinner. All the time Jesus would say, you have done worse than that person. Let us pray for that person to change. So churches, this is your country, and it is through this country that you will be buried so that you go to heaven. We will not bury you in another country before you go to heaven. So please, churches, let us both be responsible. Let us pray for each other. Where we have wronged you, forgive us. Where you have wronged us, we do forgive you sincerely.
Okay, honorable members, we can now move to the next order.
Order number 12, motion. Consideration of reports on financial statements of state corporations, Nyanza region. Resumption of debate.
Honorable members, I think the chairperson of this committee had requested that we defer this particular order for later time, so we'll defer it. Next order.
Order number 13, the startup bill, Senate Bill number 14 of 2022, second reading.
I think the chairperson of the Trade Committee had requested for a few minutes. Oh, she's here. You may proceed, Honorable Mayaka. I can see that the chairperson has arrived, Honorable Marian. What's your point of order, Honorable Mili?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I don't have a problem with the starter bill. I actually really fully support it. However, I just wanted to request the House that, because this is a private member's bill, that when we have a chance to create space, that we do consider bills that are ongoing. For instance, my assisted reproductive technology bill was already in the committee of the whole House. Ideally, it's the one that should have been slotted for this time, because it's equally just as important as a startup bill. So I'd request, because this Wednesday, government business took up almost all our time as private members. So when there is space, please consider my bill as a priority. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Mili. We shall make sure the clerks let the House Business Committee know that. What's your point of order, Honorable Makalu?
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, the issue raised by Mili is very important, and I do agree with that. If you look at the order paper of last week, Honorable Speaker, the bill which was supposed to follow immediately was my bill, Parliamentary Amendments, Parliamentary Pensions Amendment Bill. Now, even this week, it was not in the order paper. And what makes it even very surprising, Honorable Speaker, is the fact that this bill is a bill discussing pension for these members of Parliament seated here. And we don't seem to even give it any attention. I plead, Honorable Speaker, that the next opportunity for private members' bill should be given my chance. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Right, I've just been advised by the clerk that there were 3 bills for parliamentary pensions, and I think there was the House Business Committee decided that they should be looked into whether you should do 1 bill instead. But nevertheless, I think that should be, that information, the issue raised by Honorable Makalu must be raised with the House Business Committee. I think, Honorable Mayaka, you may proceed now. We are delaying your bill.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I beg to move that the startup bill, Senate Bill of number 14 of 2022, be read a second time. Honorable Speaker, as a co-sponsor of the bill, first of all, I'd just like to share with the members the main objectives of this particular bill. This bill is meant to provide a framework that fosters a culture of innovative thinking and entrepreneurship, registration of startups and the linkage of such startups with the financial institutions, private sector research institutions, and such other institutions as the national and county government. It also is meant to facilitate investment in and the provision of fiscal and non-fiscal supports to startups in Kenya, promote an enabling environment for the establishment, development, conduct of business and regulations of startups, establishment of incubation facilities at the national and county levels and government, and monitoring and evaluation of the legal and regulatory frameworks and the mechanism put in place to encourage the development of startups. Honorable Speaker, this particular bill is in 6 parts. Part 1, which is the preliminary and interpretation. Part 2, which covers the establishment of incubation programs and also demonstrates the role of national and county governments and establishment of the incubation programs. Part 3, which talks about registration of startups and admission into an incubation program. Part 4, Honorable Speaker, which speaks about certification of incubation, of incubators. Part 5, which speaks about the incentives for startups. And Part 6, which is the miscellaneous provisions for regulations. Honorable Speaker, just to pick this, to give this particular bill context, technology and technological innovations are set to be the biggest contributors of economic development in the next few years. And in most cases, they grow from innovative ideas and come into the market as startup businesses, which have exponential growth and potential owing to their digital nature. And Honorable Speaker, the reason for this particular, what motivated this particular bill by myself and the co-sponsor, the Senator Crystal Asige, is that it actually is meant to especially focus on the young people of this country who, because of the nature of expecting to get employed, we do not have so many opportunities. So for us, this is actually an encouragement for them to start up their own businesses and actually become employers themselves. Currently, startups provide rich entrepreneurship avenues, especially to the young people, thus empowering them to source local talent and in turn reduce unemployment. They also contribute to the growth and the collaboration between professionals with various backgrounds, the continual development of the cities and localities where they are established, and encourage creativity and ingenuity, thus contributing to the overall economic growth of a country. Honorable Speaker, reports show that 92% of Africa's investment in tech is won by just 4 countries. That is Nigeria, Egypt, South Africa, and Kenya. This is because their sizable population and larger GDPs make them attractive destinations for investments. In 2022, for example, Kenya tech startups raised over $570 million in funding. Indeed, Honorable Speaker, Kenya is recognized as the Silicon Savannah by virtue of being a host to a number of reputable startups that have advanced to become regional and global signatures. Honorable Speaker, for instance, M-Pesa, at its founding, led the world in mobile banking, mobile money innovation. Other brands, including Cellulant, Trigger Foods, M-Kopa, Hisa, among others, have since mushroomed as a result of this very innovative mobile money innovation. Despite all these successes, the country has no regulatory framework to guide and establish operations of startups. This gap has led to a number of challenges, including weaknesses in identifying startups, lack of incentivizing mechanism for their ventures, and lack of recognition of their unique functions and needs and realities. Honorable Speaker, the executive has pronounced itself as committed to being that this startup bill is enacted, recognizing that the African youth needs the digital skills, access to technology and markets that are essential if they are to thrive in an increasingly digital global economy. And Honorable Speaker, just to mention that these startups are actually not only covering the technology space, but we are also encouraging innovation on the scientific space and entrepreneurship space as well. The executive has further recognized that this is how Kenya, through her brilliant innovators, can unlock her remarkable capacity for innovation, for enterprise, and even the world-class leadership. Honorable Speaker, yesterday I did speak when we were engaging on the new bill for procurement. I did mention about the fact that we have allowed our innovators from this country to be celebrated first by other people from different countries before we even recognize them back at home. And Honorable Speaker, this is just one of the ways that is going to ensure that the innovators mushrooming from our country are actually recognized and that they're actually given guidelines to be able to set up the businesses that they innovate in a proper manner. Honorable Speaker, it is useful to note that a number of countries have enacted their own legislative frameworks for startups. In a number of these countries, Startups Acts include an amalgamation of policies intended to increase the incentives for young people to start new ventures and encourage investors and lenders to support their budding entrepreneurs. In Tunisia and Senegal, for example, their policies are part of their broader government strategies to position their countries as innovative hubs by leveraging the emerging tech scene to improve economic development. Honorable Speaker, again, now that we have done the necessary amendments to the Public Disposable and Procurement Act, this will actually also just enable a lot of young people, a lot of local farms, a lot of innovators to be able to have opportunities, especially now that we have said that the threshold of 1 billion and below should actually be given to local farms and not foreign farms. So this is a very timely bill that is going to work hand in hand with that particular bill. Honorable Speaker, Tunisia's Startup Act provides for, among other factors, state salaries for up to 3 founders per company during the first year of operation, also generous tax breaks, startup grants, fast track of licenses for registration documents, and increased state support to cover patent licenses. Senegal's policy includes 3 tax-free years for startups, training for youth and female entrepreneurs, and a startup registration platform, easily accessible on a government website. And here in Kenya, we are also proposing for tax holidays for the same. And you will recall, Honorable Speaker, that one of the pledges in the Azimio manifesto that the Right Honorable Raila Odinga had really advocated for was that the young people who have startups should actually be given tax holidays for them to be able to catch up and be able to integrate themselves into the business space. In India, in 2016, the government launched the Startup Action Plan, which was dubbed the Startup Indian Initiative. Its objective was to address aspects of the startup ecosystem and as a support framework for innovative entrepreneurs. India's motivation behind the action plan was to fast-track the spread of the startup movement from the digital technology sector to other sectors, including social manufacturing, agriculture, education, and healthcare. Further, they targeted to move the concentration from Tier 1 cities like Mumbai and into Tier 2 and 3, considered as semi- and urban areas. Honorable Speaker, I'm demonstrating some of these examples so that we can be able to see that as a country, that this is something that has actually been implemented elsewhere, and it's something that can actually really work in our country because we do have the resource and the potential to do the same. Honorable Speaker, based on the foregoing, the necessity and urgency for enacting this startup bill cannot be gainsaid. This bill, once enacted, will provide a framework to encourage growth and sustainable tech development, new entrepreneurship, employment, create a more favorable environment for innovation, attract Kenyan talents to diverse capital avenues, and also, Honorable Speaker, to encourage young people to start becoming CEOs and not depend on looking for employment, because they can actually gain much more when they are the innovators and the owners of their own businesses and startups. The bill provides for registrations of startups, a register of startups, and even admission into incubation programs. Further, it outlines obligations of incubators, support to startups, including credit guarantee schemes, training and capacity building, application for grants, and revocation of patents, fiscal incentives, growth objectives, and obligations for various entities. The framework provided by the startup bill will enable startups to grow, to thrive, and encourage innovation, encourage investment, and government support for the startup. It seeks to encourage the culture that we have as a country of innovation and entrepreneurship, to simplify registration and licensing, to formalize recognition what a startup is, and create a special virtual economic zone where, despite their geographical location, they can use technology to leverage and be recognized as one ecosystem. Honorable Speaker, just to put this into perspective, for example, in South Africa, you'll find that young people have digi-economical applications whereby they're able to link up the farmers to the market centers through digital economy. And the reason why they sought to do this is because they realized that young people do not like farming. Agriculture is not their thing. But when they got introduced to the digital aspect of it and how they can introduce digital economy into their country, then this sparked their interest in that particular space. So, Honorable Speaker, this again could be a very exciting innovation in the agricultural space for our young people, because as we know, we do have counties that are agriculture based, and this would really benefit the young people from there. To create and give incentives such as tax holidays that I spoke about on duty and VAT, and to attract angel investors whose investments are recognized and de-risked to a certain degree, in case the startup doesn't take off in a certain period. What do we mean by angel investors, Honorable Speaker? These are people who actually believe or buy an idea that a young innovator has, and they would really like to invest in it, but they do not have the right framework to be able to do this. So this particular bill is going to enable angel investors and people who really believe in the dreams of young people to be able to invest in them. Honorable Speaker, pursuant to Article 96 of the Constitution, the Senate, where this bill was initiated from, is tasked with the role of protecting the interest of counties. And you'll note that in this particular bill, it also quite outlines the role of both national and county governments in their role, especially in registrations of startups. Therefore, the bill clearly articulates the role of county government, facilitates startups and in incubation programs. Although obtaining support of the national government is critical, efforts must be concentrated at grassroots level, in which case the role of county governments in supporting startups become prominent. Honorable Speaker, today we've just had the President celebrating 1 year of e-citizen. And one of the roles that e-citizens has really assisted people back in the counties is that they're able to actually register businesses. So this is going to work in line with that and just make the process even more seamless for the young people who do not necessarily have to come all the way to Nairobi, to Kisumu City, Mombasa City, Eldoret City to be able to register startups, but they can actually do this at their own county level. Honorable Speaker, the bill thus provides the County Executive Committee members shall do the following: put in place a national and county incubation policy framework for the development of business and incubation sector startup systems, enter into partnership with local and international business incubators in order to promote the establishment and growth of startups in Kenya, establish programs for the certification and admission of incubators into the incubation program, put in place mechanisms that promote the development of business incubation programs, and create an enabling environment for promotion of business incubators, including fiscal and non-fiscal incentives. Honorable Speaker, startups require significant investment at the initial stage, especially in terms of capital, investment, and research and development. Considering that most people in these ecosystems are youth, there is need to support them and provide incentives, from conceptualizing of their projects to a place where businesses are established, healthy, and running. Therefore, Honorable Speaker, this bill confers on the Cabinet Secretary, without prejudice, the power to make regulations on the exemption of startups from 1, registration fees, protection of intellectual property rights, employment benefits and compensation, relationships between founders and employees, reporting and accountability of startups, and this will go a long way in giving our entrepreneurs the impetus that they need to establish themselves. The bill further amends the Science and Technology Act of 2013 to provide for financial support of technological innovation, representation of startups in the National Research Fund, and allocation of monies to provide for financial support to technological innovation. Honorable Speaker, the bill goes further to set out a criteria for admission into the incubation program, registration of startups and obligations of startups. This is important to avoid abuse of the system by fraudulent persons trying to circumvent the statutory obligations such as tax and levies. This bill also confers the responsibility of registration and database maintenance on the Kenya National Innovation Agency. This agency, as a state corporation that was established under the Science, Technology and Innovation Act of 2013, is responsible for coordination, promotion, and regulation of national innovation system. The agency works with stakeholders to promote innovation and enterprise development out of research and ideas, which means supporting the identification, recording, and protection of innovation ideas. Honorable Speaker, just again to give this into context, we all know the story of the Kyondo, which we, as a country, we really, it really took us time to fight back the rights of the naming rights from Japan, because they had named it and done a copyright of Kyondo before we did it in Kenya. And we really struggled to do that. So this is going to enable and ensure that anybody who comes up with an innovative idea, whether in soft or a service or a good, that they will actually be able to have copyrights for their ideas. Honorable Speaker, as I conclude, allow me to reiterate that the implementation of this act still confers on the National Assembly and Senate other responsibilities over and above oversight of its implementation. This includes ensuring that both national and counties are adequately funded so as to be able to undertake their responsibility. It is incumbent upon us to pursue for increased allocation to counties as well, so that they can be able to establish incubation programs and auxiliary system services, increase investment in research and development activities undertaken by startups, establish programs for the certification and admission of the incubators through the, for instance, in polytechnics. Honorable Speaker, startups are the vehicles through which innovation spur economic growth. Therefore, we must support the entrepreneurs, promote innovation by creating a favorable environment, anchored on a comprehensive legislative framework. And Honorable Speaker, I just want to urge the honorable members of this House to please support us in this particular bill so that we can leave a legacy for the young people of Kenya, that we are enabling them to be able to gain from the innovations that they do have. Honorable Speaker, with that, I do move. I thank you. And I call upon the Honorable Marianne Kaitani to...
Thank you, Honorable Madam Speaker. As I stand to second, from the onset, we want to thank the private member at the Senate and Honorable Irene Mayaka, who is the co-sponsor of this bill at the National Assembly, for bringing up the startup bill. And I must say that this bill has already gone through Senate, and it is now before the Departmental Committee of Trade, Industry and Cooperatives. It's a private member's bill, and government is also very interested in this bill. And I would like to say that the Ministry of Cooperatives and MSMEs, more specifically the State Department of MSMEs, is also very keen on this startup bill, because the young people who are I may say the cornerstone of this country in terms of development are left out, especially when it comes to investments and developments. And the reason, Madam Speaker, is because when they go out to start a business, either that business, if it is a beautiful idea, is snatched away from them, or they never get any support at all to be able to grow that idea to a business that can be able to run and work very well. A case in point, and a very good example, Madam Speaker, is the famous and the product we use today called the M-Pesa system. The M-Pesa system was an initiative and an innovation of a young man in this country. And before the young man knew it all, that product had already been taken over by an international company called Vodacom. And before we knew it, it was now a big product that is now being run and managed by Safaricom. The young man who was the inventor of that particular product, if at all, never got any reward for the works that he did. The product that the president launched, the product that the president was talking about today, the celebration of 1 year in service, that is e-Citizen, is a Kenyan product. It's an own Kenyan product. And this particular entity that runs e-Citizen, or the group that runs e-Citizen, are a creation of young people who have thought and used technology to make life easy for us as Kenyans to be able to pay for services that we use to the Kenyan government in an easy and comfortable way. You can actually sit at the comfort of your home and be able to transact with government 24/7. Unlike before, where you used to wait until government offices open between 8 and 5, and by the time you get to a government office, perhaps the officer in charge has hung his coat and gone about his business, and he leaves you there waiting for hours on end, not knowing what time he will turn up to be able to serve you. And you can see that that service has come in handy and is today helping the Kenyan people and the public. So the startup bill that we are looking at here is a bill that, much as it came from Senate and is a private member's bill, government has a lot of interest, and government wants and intends to make amendments to it. And therefore, much as we will support with amendments that will come from government and stakeholders as well, so that everybody comes in and gives input into the startup bill. A few of the objects of the startup bill, as recognized by government, is the recognition of startups. Who is a startup? And is a startup the company that has just started now, or it could even be a going concern, but they have never been able to grow from where they started. That again will be considered as a startup. And in considering these startups, we'll also be considering what we call incubation and how we can incubate or be able to nurture these companies that are startups so that they grow and become real industries that can employ a lot of our youth. Again, we will look at what we call accelerators and technology transfers. A lot of these startups today, Madam Speaker, are actually in the ICT or the technology sector. That is where most of them are. That is not to say that we don't have startups in other areas like Juakali. We know, for example, right now that we are doing affordable housing and our markets, and many people are coming up with innovative ideas of what they call a smart market, or rather equipment that is put in the already constructed market that will make life easy for the traders or the mamambogas who are going to trade in the markets. And all that is innovation from our young people who, if not taken care of, someone may decide to take up their innovation, and because they are big, they now muscle their way out and take the businesses and the ideas from these young people, leaving them with nothing to be able to hold on to, and nobody to also be able to support for them. So basically, the objects of the bill will be to recognize these startups, establish, develop, and support growth of these startups so that there is a growth plan that is there from when this business is being incubated to when it starts, all the way to when it is now mature and ready to fly and able to start work and be able to compete with the rest in industry. It will also facilitate the provision of fiscal and non-fiscal support. That is an area that most of these startups really look up to, especially for government to give them support in the fiscal and non-fiscal areas. We have government has a lot of funding and funding facilities that are available, but these startups are never able to get there. Example of people like Kenya Industrial Estates, Kenya Development Corporation, and many other agencies that have monies, government monies. But these startups are not able to access these funds at affordable rates, because when you go to KIE, they still require you to put in collateral, and many of these startups and many of these young people don't even have collateral. The only thing they have is the phone they have, that is where they are doing their technological innovations, or just the brain that they have, and that cannot be collateral in the name that can be used by these entities. So these startups will be supported for such kind of support. It will also help in catalyzing the growth of Kenya's startups, because we find that many industries, many companies, many parts of the world, like in China, Vietnam, many startups have actually grown to become big businesses. We know countries that have actually grown, like Singapore. They grew from small startups, today they are big companies, and because they were able to support young business entrepreneurs to grow their businesses. Even the product we know of today, Samsung, which is the phones we have, we know of Apple. If you listen to their stories, Microsoft, you listen to their stories, they all started up from a bedroom in a university as a startup, and because of the support and environment that was provided to them, they were able to grow to today being the blue chip companies that we know about. The bill also will help in getting private sector to come in and help in such startups, and in that process, these same private sectors who are coming in to help startups will also give the startups, they will also get incentives. They will be incentivized to be able to create or to be able to give businesses to support the startups. An example I have seen in one of the medias in the US before is something called Shark Tank. I think many of us have watched Shark Tank, and you see how entrepreneurs or business investors come in to listen to ideas of young people, and when they like the idea, they pick it up, and when they pick it up, they now get incentives for supporting those young people, because everybody always requires, especially in a startup, you require someone to hold your hand until you are strong enough to be able to walk alone. So some of the other issues is linkages of these startups to financial institutions. If we go to our banks today, many banks will ask you for so many issues, so many documents. They tell you bring 5 years bank statements, or how many what years of documents. They ask you for so many things, which these young and startup companies may not have. So the government, when this bill is passed, then the government will create an environment where such financial institutions can now be able to waive some of those requirements that are required of no more working businesses, and allow that these startups are able to create or are able to access financial capital that they so require for them to be able to grow their businesses. Another thing that is going to come out of these startups is the labeling, incubation and acceleration of these startups. We need to have an eligibility criteria. What will be there that will identify that you can actually become a startup? What are the grants that can be given to in these incubators? And how do we register these startups? Who will be the registrar? We need to have a register of all the startups that are in the country, and the support and the coordination and the technology transfers that will be required for these people to be able to access the government services. The other major and I think very salient feature in this startup bill is that the support that government will give to these startups, more specifically on issues like tax reliefs, on issues like VAT and income tax refunds or reliefs on such kind of taxes, so that these startups are not already feeling the pain of paying taxes, but more of relief. Because today, many young people don't want to get formalized. Why? Is because the moment they get formalized, the next day they find a taxman at the door telling them, now pay income tax, pay VAT, you have not touched this. But if these entities, these young startups get such kind of reliefs, they'll be comfortable to be able to run their businesses knowing that I have a relief for a certain period of time. We know government is giving reliefs to investors who come into this country, who are going to our EPZs and SEZs, and these kind of reliefs and those kind of comforts that those investors are coming in could also be transferred to these young startups. And this bill is creating that room and that leverage for these young entrepreneurs to be able to do or to start their businesses where they get reliefs from government. Some are even just levies and levies that come from certain taxes. They could even be relieved maybe from even a levy from maybe the county council levy and all those kind of levies. So there is a lot of stuff that is going to come from the startup bill, and there are some miscellaneous provisions that are also being provided in this bill, like data protection and patenting. Many of these young people don't even know the process of how to get their products to be patented, and data protection, and therefore with the government support they will be able to get their products or their services patented and their data protected, and this could not come any sooner than it has right now. We are aware that the government of Kenya and the president himself has decided to have incubation centers for startups and for young people in his office. We heard him state that yesterday, and I think it is a good way forward, and it's a very good incentive and a good show for this country that he, the president, really leading from the top, is really keen on making sure that these startups and these businesses and the young people get a space in this country to be able to run their businesses, start their businesses, run them, and become prosperous and grow to become big multinationals and be able to compete in the world like any other multinationals. So I stand to support, and we will be ready to work with the members, the private members who brought up this bill, of course with amendments that we will get from the public and the government. Thank you, I support.
You second? You can go, please go on record.
Sorry, I forgot. I stand to second this bill. Thank you.
Thank you very much, honorable members. I now propose the question, which is that the startup bill, Senate Bill number 14 of 2022, be now read a second time. The Honorable Millie Odhiambo.
Then donate a minute to me.
No, you still have time to speak.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I just wish to inform the members that we are just starting. so you still have time to speak. Madam Speaker, I want to congratulate Honorable Crystal Asige and Honorable Rene Mayaka for co-sponsoring this important bill. Madam Speaker, in their sponsoring this bill, it is a testament of the fact that disability is not inability. Crystal Asige, within the short time that she's been in the Senate, has brought up very, very good pieces of legislation. And I want to congratulate her. And I want to also congratulate Honorable Irene Mayaka, aka Rene, who has also brought, this is actually her second bill, she brought another one, an environmental one.
Honorable Lee Odhiambo.
Yes.
I also wanted to inform your colleagues seated next to you that when it comes to order of precedence, you speak first. So you proceed, but now they have also learned something that you must speak before they do, especially when you have requested.
Madam Speaker, I'm glad that you've set the record straight. I know the ones that are coming for the first time sometimes are a bit resentful when we consider ranking, but they will appreciate it when they will come for their second term, because I can see people here coming back for their second terms. So when they do come for the second term, you will appreciate when a new member is given priority over you. There's something that goes with ranking. Even in the legal profession, it's there. And that's why you always hear the substantive speaker sometimes putting us in our places when we purport to know too much and they say, I'm your senior legally. Everybody knows that. Madam Speaker, I also want to say that this is testament of the fact that being nominated is actually not bad. Honorable Mayaka and Crystal Asige are nominated members, and they are doing this excellent work. And Madam Speaker, even I started as a nominated member, here serving my 4th term. Cecily Mbarire started as a nominated member, is now a governor. So there's really nothing wrong with a person being nominated. And even Honorable John Mbadi served this term, actually not last term, as a nominated member. Now he's a cabinet secretary. But I don't know why people have this perception that they were talking about nomination that is just about women. But I want to congratulate them that they have understood their purpose as nominated members, and they are doing very well. Madam Speaker, I want to say that this bill also talks of something that is very close to my heart, which is entrepreneurship and innovation, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I'm the founder of the Maiden Institute of Leadership, Law, Innovation and Entrepreneurship, which is the Milley Institute. And under the Milley Institute, it has divisions. And one of the divisions is innovation, and the other division is entrepreneurship, Madam Speaker. And the reason that I founded this was because I know innovation and entrepreneurship is the future of this nation. Madam Speaker, because of lack of formal government jobs and because of the challenges that we are facing as a country, the young people can rely on this area powered by technology, not only to create jobs for themselves, but to create jobs for others. So when you provide a framework like this, it is actually good for our young people. Madam Speaker, due to an existing legal framework, or lack of an existing legal framework, you can see that our bright Kenyans are misusing their brains. Only this week, you have seen that some Kenyans hacked systems and were part of a group that stole I don't know how many billions of shillings. Can you imagine if the brains used to steal billions were used to create jobs? But because we lack that framework, where they have tax holidays and other incentives, then the only other options they think they have is to steal. But that is why we need to create this framework to enable them use their thoughts well. Madam Speaker, I will bring an amendment to give awards to the people with innovative ideas that offer solutions in society. For instance, Madam Speaker, I think it was in the last parliament when I attended the World Bank, the annual World Bank meeting in DC. And if there was one thing that has been over-celebrated, it is M-Pesa. And Kenya is always celebrated Not only M-Pesa, but other technologies. I was talking recently to a group that I was training online, and it's a group of Kenyans. And you know, because we currently feel that the country is facing so many challenges, sometimes we speak like we are in a dungeon. Yes, we are facing a lot of challenges as a country, and we must acknowledge that. But there are also very good things that are coming out of this country. And one of those things that is coming out of this country, or has come out of this country, is M-Pesa. But Madam Speaker, I would want to encourage Safaricom that I know for legal purposes, they may not wish us to know who that innovator is, because then they don't want that person challenging, because I know the person was supposed to have actually gone to court, I think, to sue M-Pesa. But I would want to encourage them really from a moral perspective. Let us know who that person is. Let us celebrate him as a country, because he has actually created something unique, not for Kenya, but to the whole world, that everybody is replicating in the whole world. But because we don't celebrate our own when they do such good things, that's why you see them using it for wrong purposes. I would, by the same stroke, actually request that Parliament considers forwarding the names of the movers of this bill for an award, a presidential award, because they've done an excellent job. I would want to request that we consider Irene Mayaka and Crystal Asige for presidential award for this excellent work. Madam Speaker, I also just want to say that the other challenge that I had concerns with, but I've noticed is in the bill, is the issue of intellectual property rights. That a lot of our young people come up with very good ideas, but because they don't have the resources, they go to people with that knowledge or with the resources. And the people they go to steal. So if we have intellectual property rights, a strong intellectual property rights framework, it will cover them. And that's why the bill is seeking an amendment to the Science and Technology Act to ensure that that is done. One of the things that I would want the bill to we like taking advantage of good things that you'll discover. Maybe we've said, I don't know how much you are saying a startup is worth. Maybe it's up to something up to 2 million annually or 5 million annually. Honorable Mayaka will inform me. But in Kenya, you may move to maybe if it's 2 million and you move to 1 billion. But you will still find somebody considering themselves a startup. Mr. Speaker, it is the same challenge that I've seen that we are dealing with on issues that normally require affirmative action and marginalization that requires affirmative action. There are areas and certain categories where there has been intervention and no longer qualified to be considered as marginalized area. But because at the beginning they were marginalized, we keep calling them marginalized. Marginalization is not inherent by DNA. It is because of human activity. There are areas, like I know the speakers, your home area was marginalized for a long time. I know the area where I come from was marginalized for a long time because of political reasons. But Mr. Speaker, if there is intervention in some of those areas and there is a change, we can't say we are marginalized for life. There must be a criteria to show that this has stopped being marginalized and now it is, you know, like at par with the rest of the country. The same way with affirmative action, even for women in this house. Many of us pushed for a sunset clause so that we don't have affirmative action for life. We are hoping that there will come a time that people will have normalized the election of women. I will give you an example that when I first came into this parliament and we came in nominated with people like Honorable Sophia Abdi Nur, Honorable Amina Abdallah, and others, Honorable Rachel Shebesh. Mr. Speaker, one of the things that people don't talk too much about is the fact that in those areas we come from, no woman has ever been elected. Mr. Speaker, I am the second Suba woman in the Kenya National Assembly. The first one was Josephine Sinyo, who was nominated. And I also came in nominated. This is the first time a Suba woman has been elected to this house. Honorable Sophia Abdi Nur, I'm told in 1997, she vied, And she actually succeeded on the ground. But a delegation was sent to President Moi, and he was told you cannot elect a woman. And a certificate was cancelled. But after her nomination, she was then elected. And I can tell you everywhere, the Maasais, Lamu, all the areas that would not really nominate women before can now elect women. Why? Because there's affirmative action. We have not yet reached the percentage we need. But once we reach that percentage, then affirmative action must be out of the books. And in a similar manner, Mr. Speaker, there must be a sunset clause for a startup. Otherwise, we'll abuse it. Once again, congratulations to the two of you for an excellent bill.
What was the affirmative action you got in your elections yourself? I mean, other than the time when you got nominated, where many men do get nominated, but did you get any undue advantage over your male compatriots for the 2 times you came in as elected member? You competed there equally with everybody else.
When I was elected?
Yes.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, I can tell you when I was elected, I competed equally, no, I wouldn't want to say equally, but I competed with other male members. And what I went through, when I finished my first election, I was shocked. I was like, was I in a war or was I in an election? And when I finished, I wrote for 2 weeks. And that is a book, Rig or Be Rigged, because I was shocked. And I've removed half of the things that I saw from that book for political convenience. It is not easy for women to be elected.
Okay, fair enough. The Honorable who is next to, Jalas. For the benefit of Honorable Millie, when you first came in as a nominated member of parliament, I remember there were 6 Kalenjin women who competed with men and won their elections. Sambili, not only from one community, only from one community. And here is Mary Ann, who literally competes with all the men. So the affirmative action in the definition, anyway, I'm on the chair, I cannot debate. Just continue.
Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker. And just first to appreciate Madam Millie Mabona and recognize that she's my senior, and I was raising my hands up to speak before her, not recognize that she's a ranking member. My apologies. And Mr. Speaker, I hope to come back here also to feel the same when maybe a first timer has been given a chance to speak before, before a ranking member. And with her sitting next to me, I should have been quiet throughout until she speaks. And with that, let me just get straight to it to appreciate Asige, our Senator, Honorable Senator Asige, and Honorable Millie Mayaka on this bill, on the startups bill. Irene Mayaka on this startup bill. Mr. Speaker, I am a member of parliament elected in Nairobi, where so many young men and women now believe in what they can do themselves, what they call a startup. There's an influx of startups, every single young man and woman hoping that their dreams can come true with the simple things that they are able to do with their hands or their creativity and all. And I just want to give a few examples. I want to give an example of a fashion designer who's taken over the fashion industry just as a startup and now ruling the industry. Yvonne Afro Street is a big startup. Home 254 is a big startup. Artfit is a big startup. And even on the ICT level and communication, Nairobi Gossip, or what they call as Gen Z's NGC, is a big startup that now runs the media and information in this city. So if these young people were never given a chance to show up what they can do, their startups would have just died. But then again, today young people believe more in themselves because of one thing. When they complete their studies, one of the first things somebody's asked for is 10 or 20 years experience. Where are they going to get this 10 years experience if they've just left the universities or the colleges where they were from? That is why we have so many influx of startups, and they need to be protected. And with that, just to pick from the bill itself, the startups themselves must also be given tax holidays. These are just young people trying to figure out what next for myself, what next for this big idea that I have. Any young man trying something for themselves should register their companies for free, start for free, and even be given a tax holiday so that they are able to start up whatever the idea there is. Most of these billionaires we see today started up as startups. See Elon Musk, one of the, and almost number one, the most richest man in the world, started up as a startup. Look at Bill Gates from a bedroom and friends, college friends. Look at the Facebook founder, Zuckerberg. Also just started with a few friends, and it was just an idea and just as a startup. So we kindly ask that these young people having these great ideas be given tax holidays, be given a chance to register their companies for free so that they can try these amazing ideas that they have. But also requesting blue chip companies to open doors for these startups, because so many of young people go out there to show their ideas, what they have, only to come back and say that my idea was stolen. Then, boom, the idea is the number one thing in the market. We have so many young people who are crying out here, looking for legal redress, just to show that they had an idea, Mr. Speaker, that was stolen by a blue chip. If you are a blue chip company out there and you see a young man walk into your company with an idea, you have no business stealing this idea. Hold this young man or this young lady's hand so that they can be able to express themselves. I'm here to support Senator Sige and Honorable Irene Mayaka on this startup bill, and we will be here to support and see that it comes to fruitful. Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker.
Is the MP for Igembe North around? No. Yeah, we will then go to Karole Mondi. Let's have the Subas, basically. It's a Suba day.
The Suba fraternity. Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. It gives me great pleasure to recognize the good work of Honorable Senator Asige and our very fine young lady, Honorable Rene Irene Mayaka. She's doing very good work. She's a prominent member of the House, always present, and innovative. I'm very pleased to support this particular bill, the startup bill. It is so timely that I was a little surprised, because just a few days ago, I did appear before the Finance Committee to propose a change in our curriculum to include a new subject called nationhood science, which part of which is to actualize Article 10 of our Constitution, but also to bring in innovation, entrepreneurship, and responsible citizenship as a mandatory subject in our schools. I think once we have that, it will be actualized in this bill. Once we have innovation and entrepreneurship as standard subjects in school. I think we have tried as a country for so long to incubate startups. We had Kenya Industrial Estates, we had Kenya Institute of Research and Development, we had Numerical Machining Complex, and there are things they have done, they have achieved, but there's still a lot of gaps to be filled. When I looked at this bill, I see a very good starting point, and I'm very confident